And welcome to a new video. Today we'll be talking about the New World closed beta and my experience with it as someone who's already spent about 20 hours in the beta. So before I start, I do want to say that I have had experience throughout the whole New World testing process. I played about 20 to 25 hours of the public event that happened last August, and I played throughout the alpha process. While I can't share any footage from that time, I do want to say that I think the game is in a much better place than it used to be, and I'll definitely be playing more of it at the end of August when it launches. But in this video specifically, I want to talk about a couple good things, bad things, and a few other things I want to see in New World after it releases. So now let's talk about a couple of good things from the New World beta, specifically the combat and the skill leveling depth. So combat is probably the most enjoyable part of the game for me. Each weapon feels different, and I think the two weapon system that's currently used is a much more refined combat system than what was shown off initially last August. So with the current system, I definitely think the independent cooldown timers per weapon makes the game feel a lot more fluid and varied. I think that having two distinct weapons, one close range and one long range, for example, plays really well with the system, especially since there are independent timers on each weapon, so you can chain together a lot more combos or even use specific weapon skills to be able to traverse a lot faster. I'm thinking the fire step with the fire staff, and there's a dash also with the life staff. But two of my favorite weapons currently are the rapier and the fire staff. As a solo player, I definitely feel like they help me do a lot more damage to enemies, especially soloing. However, I definitely think for a more rounded team composition, like the life staff can also be a good option for healing yourself and your targets on your team. And then the hammer can also be good if you're wanting to be more of a DPS tank character. But overall, I think the variety of the weapons is a very good thing for this game. I do hope eventually they add more, as long as they aren't like clones of current weapons. I think as long as any new weapons or content they make is varied and distinct, then it'll definitely feel a lot like it belongs in New World. But now I want to talk a little bit more about the skill leveling depth in the game. And this is one of the things that kind of impresses me the most about New World, is how in-depth the skill system is. So if we look at the skill system, each skill is a practical skill where you gain experience by doing something, whether it's mining, harvesting, chopping down blocks, or crafting. And I definitely think that this system works really well, considering you have to reach a certain skill level to be able to unlock new items to craft or new things that you can harvest out in the world. And given the amount of skills there are, I'm guessing that players will continue to find things to mine and harvest even at later levels going into mid and end game content. For example, the highest level item I saw to mine needed a skill level of 150, and I was about level 30 about 15 hours into my character. So that's two of the things that I've really liked about New World. Another small thing that I do like is I like the overall world design. I definitely think the game looks a lot better than some of the other previously made Amazon Game Studio games. Their use of the Lumberyard engine here, I definitely think has worked out pretty well. And I definitely like the overall aesthetic of the game, especially looking at some of the screenshots of the end game content like Reek Water and Ebb and Scale. But now that we've talked about some of the good in the game, let's talk about some of the things that I think could be improved upon after launch and leading up to launch. And so let's talk about some of the things that I'm not a big fan of in New World and things I want them to address moving forward. Two of those being the traversing the world and unintuitive UI. So when we look at traversing the world, I consistently find it pretty fun, and I can always find new items to harvest, animals to hunt, or mobs to kill. And all of that minute-to-minute gameplay is fun. However, I think the overall quest design, especially moving into mid-game content, can make New World's traversal options feel like a chore. So if we look at my map, there's a lot of different regions that I have tasks in, and I can only get there from walking or using one of the 3 fast travel mechanics that I've seen in the game. So the first one is checking in at an inn, which you can do at any town. Second is buying a house in any town. And then third is fast traveling between towns or between specific fast travel points within the map. For example, if there's a main quest somewhere, there might be a fast travel option or fast travel shrine nearby. And all of these options definitely do make it easier to traverse. However, the cost to use all these can make it a little tedious. For in fast travel at any town, you can do it once, but then have an hour-long timer. For fast traveling from shrines or between towns, you can only do them at those places. You can't just be in Eternum anywhere and then fast travel. And you have to use a currency called Azoth. And that depends on a lot of different things like your encumbrance, and then whether or not the town you're traveling to is owned by your faction or not. And that can give you benefits or make it more expensive. And then the last option, similarly, is buying a house. This works very similar to fast traveling at an inn. You can fast travel to that house from wherever. However, the big downside here, if you're a casual player specifically, is you have to keep up with property taxes. And so if your town you have your house in, for example, isn't owned by your faction and they raise the taxes on everything, then that can be bad if you cannot pay. So for all of these, it makes the most sense just day to day doing the quests to just walk everywhere. And that's a big negative for me, especially looking at how big of a distance you have to go between quests sometimes, especially if you're juggling your faction quest, the town board, and then the main quest or side stories you have for a specific town. And looking more into this really lends itself into the overall unintuitive nature of the UI. And I think there are a couple of aspects that are kind of poor right now. First off, the current UI for quests and group chat can be very unintuitive. Without turning off all the chat, I feel like the user interface can be a little cluttered. And I don't think it's that intuitive to know where to turn it off. So for example, if we look at my game, we can see that everything is on the left and we have all our quests on the right. And you have to really go into the menus to be able to notice where to turn off the chat. I feel like this should just be in the settings menu overall to make it a bit more of a streamlined experience. And then the second thing that I think is intuitive or unintuitive is the quest design system, specifically where you accept quests. So you can go in your journal at any point and see all your quests. But if you have accepted quests from multiple regions, each region will be, all the quests will be segmented by a region. However, I wish there was a way to filter by all the regions you had quests for. And those are the only two real negatives I feel like with the UI, at least right now. I definitely think those two things could be improved pretty easily to make it a lot more simpler and make it a lot more user-friendly for players. And yeah, so now that we've gone over a couple bad things, let's talk about my overall impressions on whether or not you should pick up New World in its current state. And overall, I really do think New World is in a much better place than it was the last time I played. The weapons are fun and the combat feels way more fluid, which is a big complaint I had previously in the alpha last August. And the main things I do wish for are just fixing up the UI and fixing the traversal system. One thing that I've always wanted for this game and seen a lot of other people who have played other MMOs have mentioned are a mount system or an easier way to fast travel. And that's probably the biggest downside to me as a New World player, is the padding to have to travel so far between quest destinations. Because I definitely think the minute-to-minute gameplay is fun, but the time between that gameplay cannot be fun at all, and wish we could lessen that a little bit. And yeah, that's my overall thoughts on New World after about 20 hours in the closed beta. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave it a like and a comment. If you are interested, I do stream on Twitch, and we'll put the link down below. And yeah, I will see you next time for some more New World content. Bye.